Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be painting up the Nexos for the Gene Stealer cults. Now I'm going to be trying to focus heavily on trying to reproduce what the image is on there with a bit more flair. Since he's a character, I'm going to go a little bit extra on the details and stuff. Well, the basic overall appearance. The model has been fully assembled with the table and the stand that it's on are two separate pieces. His right arm is separate and then the rest of his body is in one piece. And is primed with black matte gray car primer because you can use it in any atmosphere or temperature. After that, here's all the paints and stuff that I used throughout this project. Alright, with Eshin Gray, Abaddon Black, and Dawnstone, we're going to focus on his boots and like chest armor that's under his robes. Basically, we start with the base layer of Eshin Gray, then we're going to highlight with Dawnstone as a preliminary thing, then we're going to take Abaddon Black, water it down a lot till it's a wash, and we're going to apply multiple layers till it seeps into the recesses. And once that is done, I don't show it, but you can go back with Dawnstone and re-highlight the edges and stuff. With boots, focus on like the front parts of the boots, like straight solid lines on where their toes would be and stuff, and that tends to work well, along with the edges of their armor pads, I guess you could say? Yeah. Now, onto his shirts, which is on his left and right arm. So with Thunderhawk Blue, Cantor Blue, Fenrisian Gray, and Pallid Witchflesh, we're going to paint these shirts. So we're going to start with the base layer of Thunderhawk Blue as a midtone all over on his, well, right and left arm. Then we're going to take Cantor Blue Pure, and we're going to paint it directly into the recesses. We're painting the shadows right now. Then we're going to take Cantor Blue and we're going to add a bunch of water until it becomes a thin wash, and we'll apply around 2 layers. We want to thin it down so that 2 layers is good enough so that we can control it better. It's easier to add than it is to subtract. So 2 layers, easy, done. Make sure to use filtered water, otherwise you're going to have white spots show up. Now once that is done, we go back with Thunderhawk Blue and we re-highlight pretty much everything. We're covering like 90% of the model. And I'm doing like little feather strokes here and there along the edges, along with straight lines along the visible folds and stuff like that. Then once that's done, I go straight with Fenrisian Gray, highlight pretty much everything I just re-highlighted before, probably like half of what I just did with Thunderhawk Blue. And then I do a mix of Fenrisian Gray and Pallid Witchflesh, just a little bit in to highlight it further, and I just apply this here and there on the most raised folds, upper areas and stuff, solid straight lines on the obvious folds, and a little bit of feathering horizontally and stuff, or vertically, sorry, on some areas to make it like blend in a little better. And if the highlight is too much, if it's too bright in comparison to everything else, it can be easily fixed. And what I do is I take another wash of Cantor Blue and I just apply it all over to tie the colors together and tone down the highlights if it's too much. And this is a back and forth thing, just have fun with it. Now with Evil Sun Scarlet, Corn Red, Troll Slayer Orange, and Fire Dragon Bright, we're going to paint his cape, or cloak and stuff, which is the next biggest thing, and it is on top of all the other things, so by order of ease of painting, the cloak is the third thing to do. Alright, base coat, Evil Sun Scarlet all over. Then we're going to take Corn Red, and we're going to paint it directly into the folds and recesses. Then we're going to take Corn Red, turn it into a wash, and then we're going to apply 2 coats of it all over. Then we're going to re-highlight 90% of everything with Evil Sun Scarlet, which is basically straight lines on the obvious folds and flat areas, and then we're going to do horizontal like feathering across to sort of essentially there's some places where the Corn Red is a little too big or too thick, and we want the Evil Sun Scarlet to sort of like cut in a little bit so that the recesses isn't such a solid straight line of Corn Red. And then we're going to take Troll Slayer Orange, and then we're going to basically do the same thing again, re-highlighting everything we did before, focusing on the more raised areas, the folds and stuff, and then feathering in like horizontal slashes in to add some texture. And then we're going to go with the lightest color that we select there, I can't remember its name, and then focus on the most raised lines and folds and stuff like that, and some horizontal slashes to feather it in and blend it in stuff. Now, if of course the highlights are too extreme, you can take your wash again of Corn Red, apply it all over to tie the colors together and to fix things. However, after I did this, it looked a little too dark for me, so I went and got an even brighter orange, Luganeth orange, and just highlighted, basically did a few lines on the most prominent raised lines and folds, and a few dots here and there for like catching the light and stuff. That's it. Alright, with Dawnstone, Corvus Black, and Administrative Gray, we're going to do his backpack and chest piece. So, basically, base layer, Dawnstone, all over. Then we're going to take Corvus Black and we're going to paint directly into the recesses or folds of his armor, into the vents and stuff like that. Then we're going to turn it into a wash and we're going to apply like 2 layers of it on there. Once it's done, we're going to re-highlight with Dawnstone, focusing on all the edges. We're going to do a little bit of feathering into the flat planes on his chest. And then we're going to take Administrative Gray and do some fine lines on the most raised folds, edges of his backpack, like visible square edges. And a few lines inside his chest piece. And that's it. Alright, now with Rhinoxide, Morphing Brown, and Steel Legion Drab, I'm going to try a little bit different with the leather. So base layer of Rhinoxide all over. Then I'm going to take Morphing Brown and highlight it. Basically, I'm going to do all the edges, solid edges, sharp edges, and folds along. Then I'm going to feather in a little bit along the edges and stuff. And so once I do that, then I'm going to take Rhinoxide, turn it into a wash, and then just apply it all over. And once that's done, I'm going to re-highlight with Morphing Brown, but I'm not going to do as much. I'm going to focus on the most raised areas or most closest to the light. And then once that's done, I'm going to take Pure Steel Legion Drab, and I'm just going to put like a few lines and dots here and there on the most raised areas, more prominent edges and stuff, and a little bit of feathering. I'm basically painting like 50% of what the Mornfang Brown was with the Steel Legion Drab, and it's a different look. And now, with what I thought I took a picture of, Vallejo Steel, Vallejo Duraluminum, which is basically a dark metal and a bright silver, as well as Rhinoxide and Mornfang Brown, we're going to do the metal. So basically, steel, the dark metal, we're going to paint it all over the metal pieces. And once that is done, we're going to take Rhinoxide and we're going to turn into a wash, and we're going to apply 2 to 3 coats of this all over the metal. Now, the metal pieces that are on the person, the chain, and several knickknacks is just going to be just a pure basic steel color. And then once we finish with the Rhinoxide and it's dry, we're going to take Mornfang Brown and we're going to apply it here and there, like sort of as a wash, but like close to it. And if it's too strong, overpowering in some places, I just touch it with my finger and it will dilute it or remove some of it from the top. It's an easy way of controlling the color. If you just touch your model after you paint it to remove some of the opacity of the paint. We will then go back with the steel color and we will sort of, well, highlight the edges, but we'll also like scrape a little bit, sort of dry brush along the edges or areas leading up to sort of a feathering scraping pattern. And then once that's done, we'll take the Duraluminum, which is the silver, and we'll just do pure highlights on the edges, the sharp edges. And that's it. And the Duraluminum silver will go onto his antenna thingy, and the rest of the steel pieces on like his chain and other little metal bits that he has around. Alright, with Caliban Green, Cabalite Green, and Nurgling Green, yeah, that's quite a jump, we're going to paint the center of the table hologram thingy. So basically, with Caliban Green all over on the inside, as well as I'm going to feather a little bit of it along the edges of where the metal meets, sort of like as light bleeding over or like light reflecting. And once that's done, we're going to take cab light green and we're going to apply it onto the rooftops of the image that he has there, or how to describe it, along with, we're going to basically sort of like dry brush this or overbrush this onto the thing that's there. Yeah. Now once that's done, I'm going to take a 1-to-1 mix of cab light green and nurgling green, and we're going to highlight all the sharp edges of all the buildings and stuff, and a few dots here and there of like the, what is rubble in there? I don't know, it's hard to say. And then we're going to take pure nurgling green and then highlight the most prominent sharp edges and stuff, basically dots or very, very short lines here and there. And that's it. Alright, with Cadian Flesh Tone, Pallid Witch Flesh, Emperor's Children, Xerxes Purple, and now trying something new, Mournfang Brown, I'm going to paint his flesh. Now I wanted to do his flesh towards the end because of like how it's intermingled with all the surrounding stuff. It would be easier to do the metals first. So essentially 1-to-1 mix of Cadian Flesh Tone and Pallid Witch Flesh as a base layer. Make sure it's a solid color on his hands, which is on the desk, his right arm, and his head. Once that's done, a 1-to-1 mix of Emperor's Children and Xerxes Purple mixed together and turned into a wash. And we're going to apply like 2 coats of that all over. It's not going to be pretty. On his face, there's going to be like some random, like, I don't know, like spider webbing, but that's fine. And then once that's done, we're going to take pure Xerxes Purple, apply a good solid dot of it on his forehead to create the shadow for that. And once we apply these washes and they're now dry, our first layer of highlights. We're going to go with pure Cadian Flesh Tone, and we're going to basically outline his face. His ears, well, start with the most important stuff. His nose, his eyebrows. And once you do that, then focus on, below his eyes, the sides of his face. They have very pronounced cheekbones. His chin, start with the most obvious lines first. And like, I don't know, what is it, the part of the cheek, they have it defined on the model, but that's right next to the mouth, his jawline. Once you do that, then like spend the rest like feathering on the top of his head and to the back of his head and stuff, and that should have some good color transition stuff. Cadian Flesh Tone will be the first layer, and then once that's done, I'm going to make a wash out of Mournfang Brown, and we're going to apply this very small amounts. We're going to do basically spots. We're going to apply little drops of the wash on the sides of his head, his cheek, his eyes, and a little bit on his mouth. And once that's done, we are going to then take our 1-to-1 mix of Pallid Witch Flesh and Cadian Flesh Tone, and then we're going to re-highlight. Focus on the nose, eyebrows, chin, focus on the big obvious lines first. Now it's okay if the color transition is a little striking, because the head is really small. Sharper transitions actually show up better when you look at the model. And so once we do that, we basically then feather the rest onto the top of his balding head and stuff. And yeah, it looks pretty good. Don't forget his jawline and where his cheeks begin and stuff, and a few lines from the middle of his cheek going down into his jaw will be fine. Stuff like that. See if you can, you have to have a good brush for this. If you see if you can do his like top of his lips and stuff like that. Once that is done, I looked at it, but it wasn't as highlighted as much as I'd like, so I went with pure Pallid Witch Flesh, and I put like a few dots here and there on his eyebrows, nose, chin, stuff like that, and of course on his forehead to highlight that gene stealer genetic trait, whatever you call it. Yeah. Alright, with Fulgurite Copper, Seraph Sepia, and Sycorax Bronze, we're going to paint the, well, brass. So basically there's an Imperial logo symbol on the table, and he has his chain and stuff, Gene Stealer cult symbol. So basically Fulgurite Copper base, pure Seraph Sepia on top, highlight with Sycorax Bronze, and that's it. And now for assembly, which was surprisingly really difficult. I don't know how, but his table thing seems to be like taller than him. I don't know, the stand and stuff. And so it was difficult to get his hand to position right. So I ended up messing some of the paint, so I had to repaint and fix the attachment area. But man, that was ridiculous to get it back on there, so I couldn't really show it because I had to do it off screen, like next to my face and stuff, and get it just the angle right and hold it in my hands for a while. That was really annoying to actually put this together. Goodness. And now for the finishes. So with AK Interactive Ultra Matte Varnish and Anti-Shine Matte Varnish from the Army Painter. So basically what I do is I mix these 1-to-1 with each other and 1 part water as well. And so what that does is there's a certain nice gloss that the paints naturally have that I like. And both of these things combined can actually mimic it. So it does seal it in, but it looks like there is no seal on it. And the water, so both these things have a whitening effect, and the water helps get rid of that. So with these three combined, it keeps the natural glossy shine of the paintbrush and stuff, which I kind of like. I mean, I could just do pure Ultra Matte Varnish on his cape, but I kind of like a little bit of that shine and stuff, so I don't know, I just liked it better. And yeah, now one thing to note is that after assembly, before this step, you would paint any issues or like mess ups or fix anything that was damaged. There were a few things that were a little messed up from assembly, but I patched that up before I sealed them in with this. And yeah, that is it. And done. So not bad. So interestingly, the shirt came out pretty well. I like the blue. I didn't think the Thunderhawk blue was going to really do something so big with it or be so interesting. The new way of doing leather, it's a different color, it's a different style, and it can work. It has its uses. It looks better on the gun holster than it does on the bag he's carrying. Apart from that, so a lot of things do look good. His boots look good, his chest piece looks good, his red cloak probably is the worst, and by worst I mean the front part. I kind of messed up on like creating the artificial lines and highlights, and so it's not as good. The desk, the hologram thingy looks fine. The table, I'm bad at metals. It just generally, like, for some reason they elude me in color wise, and so I'm trying to figure it out, but I mean, it's passable. I mean, the metal looks fine. It's nothing particularly shiny. You have to shine a light onto it to see more color, but it looks lackluster compared to everything else, but like it's fine. It's not a negative. It doesn't detract, but it doesn't elevate. It's like when you look at the model, you see him, and the metal desk that he's on sort of just actually side by side. I'm looking at the model right now. It actually looks bad being right next to the model. Doggone it. Can't win them all. So overall, dang, that does look bad. Oh, that's... Dang it. Oh, metals, why must you elude me so? Well, alright, I'm gonna say... Oh my god. On the guy alone, he would be an 8 out of 10, maybe even a 9. Actually, you know what? I would say he's a 9 out of 10, because I really did great on his face. His face looks great. I got really the details, his scowling, I got all the cheekbones right, the coloration is soft transfer of colors in certain places, and hard lines and good clear lines in other places. His face, his skin looks great. His clothes is well highlighted and focused. And then there's this stupid disc plate that he's next to. It's like, I don't know, it just looks dull compared to him. Like, he's bright and colorful. And he's got this disc desk that looks just like meh next to him. Metals keep eluding me, my goodness. Well, anyway, I'm going to say it's an 8 out of 10, because there were some things that went out really well, but that desk just kind of brings down the whole piece. And it's not that it's bad, but you can clearly look at this and say, he has a lot of skills in one way, but metals, he's not as good at. Yeah, clearly. So it's more like the metal is not bad, but it drags down the overall piece because it's not at the same level as everything else. So anyway, 8 out of 10 overall. So a few notes. Now, why I'm using these washes and stuff in this method of washes, I find is because when you're actually working and painting oils, you basically have to do that overnight. Basically, if you do oil paints or shading with that, that's the last thing you do in the night, because you need like 8 to 12 hours for that thing to dry fully. Otherwise, how do I put this? If you want to paint over where you have done your oil paints and stuff, it's like you're painting on an unprimed model. It resists paint. So when it comes to an overall workflow, using these washes, turning paints into washes and stuff like that, is overall faster, because after I apply it, I can just take a hair dryer and just rapidly dry it in just a moment and just keep going. And so it's a faster workflow. Oils is really good on like large squads and stuff, but this method of creating your own washes, filling in things, and blending things together with like an overall wash to tie the colors together, that is it's faster, and it works pretty fast. But yeah, so overall 8 out of 10. It was an interesting project. It came out better than I expected. His skin came out great. His face looks great. It looks great from a distance. I can see his eyes and nose. He's like 2 feet away from me right now. Yeah, I can clearly see the distinct features of his face. His noses, his chin, his eyes, his forehead. It's all clearly visible from a distance, which is one of the main focuses of how I paint. Apart from trying to get it done with the least amount of effort, is when you look at it across the table, can you clearly distinctly see the different pieces of the model? Well, anyway, on to more models eventually. I don't know. Been very busy. Life's been rough, but anyway, hope this helps someone. Hope you can learn something. Hope it entertains someone. So, like the video if you like the video, share if you want to share it, comment if you want to comment, and more to come.